Hello everyone and welcome to the Process Podcast.
Juki, how are we doing?
I'm alright, mate. A little bit hot, but I'm good.
It is warm. We are currently sat outside our little teepee here in Chiang Mai. Sun is blaring down. We got a pretty epic podcast set up here outside. Why are we in Chiang Mai?
Because some idiot decided to sign up to a 100-mile race through the hills of Chiang Mai, or Doi Inthanon. I've been looking at races to do since COVID, and this one came up. I was entered in this and I qualified for it a few years ago, and obviously because of COVID, it got rolled over. So if I didn't take it this year, then I would have lost it. So I thought I'll take it, and it gives me a chance to gain points for the ultimate goal of UTMB.
So I think it's important to have some context here. You're not a professional racer.
Definitely not.
You've got a day job.
I do.
But you put yourself out there to do these ridiculous races. We've done one before. I was your support team in, when was it, 2019?
2019, yeah.
2019, where we went to Chamonix, and you did
145.
145k.
Yeah.
Finished it.
I did, yes.
And then since then, I think you planned, there must have been at least 3 between then.
Yeah, I did. I had a couple per year, and they've just obviously all fallen by the wayside.
Haven't happened. You've done some pretty cool things instead of those races. We did 100 laps.
Yeah, no, I did 100 Ks around the peak, so I did 33 laps of the peak.
That's right.
For charity.
That was cool.
That was good fun, yeah. Black rain and all, but it was good fun.
Yeah, very memorable. What else have you done?
I did that training one where I just ran from the China border basically down to Hong Kong Island.
That's right.
And I think you and Zeno joined me for the last 10 or 15 Ks where I was pretty much broken. I just wanted to go home and sleep.
Oh, I was on my scooter, no?
That's right, yeah.
That was good. Do you call yourself like an ultra marathon runner now? Is that kind of like when people ask you what you do outside of work?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, anyone who does these races is really an ultra marathon runner. So yeah, I would say I'm an ultra marathon runner.
Race kicks off tomorrow.
Yes.
Morning.
10 a.m.
10 a.m. start.
Yep.
What's your forecasted finish time?
Mate, it's difficult because these races, anything can go wrong, right? So, I mean, I would say it sounds funny, but I would say anywhere between 30 and 40 hours. 30 being a very good result, and then 40 being, obviously finishing would be is a win really, but 40 would be, I'd be a little bit. If I had to be disappointed in anything, it would be 40 hours. But again, if I finish and I'm in one piece, I'm happy. So
what's the finish rate relative to people who start?
You know what? Every race depends. It varies because I mean you've got heat conditions which you can take into consideration. Actually, any weather conditions. So some races get really cold, races pull out. Heat usually in this part of the world kills a lot of people. I mean, not literally, obviously, but just puts people in a hole.
On performance for sure.
Definitely. I mean, the humidity, and it's quite humid. I'm surprised because we're in the mountains already, and I'm sort of sweating already. So, I mean, I would say there'd be quite a few pulling out of this race only because of the humidity and the heat, and it's just definitely not as hot as I thought it was going to be. It's like probably 28 degrees now, and that's not ideal. But I would rather the heat. I would much rather a hot race than a cold one.
Why is that?
I just don't like the cold. I get, because I sweat quite a lot, and even if it's really cold, I sweat, and then you try and unzip and you get really cold. You get cold very easily. So for me, it's easy to take off layers and have layers off rather than try and layer on, and then I just sweat more. So. And
I guess you pretty much live in a very hot climate. Most of your runs are done.
Yeah, I mean, obviously living in Hong Kong or Macau recently, it's humid, and you train basically during summer, so it does lend your body to be basically acclimatized to the hot and humid weather. So,
yeah. I think I should probably talk about what my role is on this trip.
Yes, definitely.
Why did you invite me for the second time?
Well, I mean, I think if you're on a good thing, you stick to it, right? So, I mean, we did the TDS in 2019, and even though you got us a couple of speeding fines, and you didn't pay. You were a bit late for my last checkpoint, but no, it worked, and it worked well. And because you're being my coach, you know my body well, and obviously our history together in rugby, sort of what I'm like and as a person. So if I need a kick in the arse or I need a bit of a tap on the bum or something. So it's you know me better than anyone else. So it's good to have someone that's there for you. Because in these races, inevitably you go through a range of emotions. You can have the lowest of lows and the highest of highs, which you've seen. And yeah, having someone there who you're familiar with makes a massive difference. Having someone that you don't really know, I don't think it would be the same.
I remember when we went to Chamonix, I remember when you asked me to come with you and to be your support team, I actually didn't know what that meant, to be honest. And I remember just thinking, like, why would I do this? And when I thought about it, was like, I love sporting performance. I love working with athletes in any regards. And the whole idea of that is like, preparing for a competition and then like executing the competition. And I'd never been a part of like a real endurance event. You watch like the Standard Chartered marathon, people go past, that's about it. That's as close I'd ever been to being involved in one. And so I thought, what a cool experience this could be as a coach that's working with athletes, primarily in different modalities and sports. But so I said, yeah, why not? Let's just give it a go. And it was an amazing experience. Obviously it was an amazing experience, me being able to support you, because, we've now worked together for 6-7 years.
6-7, yeah, it's been a while, yeah.
And actually to be able to be there with you on a race for the first time.
Yeah.
In an epic part of the world, like you're on Mont Blanc in the mountains of Europe with snow, and you've got thousands of people getting off these ridiculous things, and then being able to watch the top dogs, and like I was just blown away by the athleticism of the top runners and like how fast they move through for that long. It's just insane. Yeah, no,
that was for me. It was a good thing for me to show you that this side of an athlete. Like, obviously you deal with with rugby and CrossFit, and it's a totally different type of sport, right? So, the top guys in ultra running, they're probably like 6 foot and 55 kilograms. They're lean, but they're extremely strong, and they're obviously not just physically but mentally strong. And it was good for me to show you that side of it, and what sort of, I guess, what brought me into the sport and what helped me sort of just what I aim to be, or not what I aim to be, but just sort of gives you a bit of, I guess, a yardstick on what you can measure yourself against, and where you not that I'm ever going to be as good as those guys, but it's something to measure yourself and sort of, look at their training methods and how they mentally prepare for a race. So for me, it was, to have you there was good, because you saw that side of the thing, that side of the endurance sport you'd never seen before. So
yeah, and I had a whole new appreciation for it, and a lot more understanding, even going back to, when that had wrapped up, and we went back to the training board to be like, well, let's map out now what the next year is going to look like. I had a much better understanding as to, okay, what does an athlete actually need to be able to do? And also obviously knowing you and being able to watch you through this race. Well, watch is maybe not the best term, but you're following someone through the race. Just allowed me to do my job a lot better, I think, as a coach as well.
No, definitely. The fact, and for me it was a learning experience, because I had never done a race of that, with that much elevation and that long. So for me, it was an eye-opener to know, the mountains humble you as a person. No matter what you do, no matter what training you do, you go into a mountain and you're not prepared, it's going to throw you back down that mountain as fast and faster than you can get up it, right? So for me, it made me realize what I needed to do to get through another race at a better level, and what weaknesses I had. And then obviously for you being there and you seeing, as I said before, the highs and the lows of the emotions of a race, it's good for you to see what you actually go through, and then when we're training, we can train for that. So yeah, and put that in the programming. So yeah.
Yeah. So basically, my role is, when you start a race, we just gone through it today for Chiang Mai.
Yep.
But you basically have these checkpoints, and a lot of them like refueling stations, and they're periodically mapped throughout the course.
Yeah.
And there are certain ones that I can attend as a support team, and we basically have all your times mapped out, so predicted times when you hope to get to there. We've got aggressive times, and we've got perhaps more realistic or conservative times.
Yeah.
And basically my job is I got to be there at that time, and I'm driving around in a car. I've got a bunch of goodies that you've already pre-packed, and I essentially deliver these to you, give you a pep talk if needed, force you to eat food, do whatever's needed in that moment. And sometimes those stops are 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Last year we had one that was a fair bit longer than that, where that was like middle of the night, and everyone was kind of turned into like the zombie apocalypse. That was actually pretty scary.
I was on Struggle Street, definitely.
Yeah.
That was like 2 a.m. Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah, and there are some where it's just kind of like a quick high five, like, nah, I'm good, I got this.
Yeah.
I'll see you at the next checkpoint.
Yeah, no, and I think this one's a bit different, because I think in Chamonix we had like, I think it was evenly spaced. It was like 50, then 90, then 120 Ks, I think. So they were up, they were fairly evenly. But this one we've got I think we've got one at 23Ks, which I'm not going to have you go to. There's one at 50K, and there's not another one till 130K. So there's 85Ks in between that I'm going to be sort of just using I've got a drop bag at one aid station, plus then there's other checkpoints, but there's going to be no outside help from, for yourself also. That's going to be for me, and that's over the night. So that's going to be like that'll be the toughest time. And I know that when you get to night time, it can be tough because you're just following like your headlamp, and you get to, you can get a bit down. So, but hey, that's why we do it. That's why I do it, right? So
that's what I want to talk about next, which is why did you get into this? So I think our background was, we both played rugby together. You were probably at the tail end of your career, kind of when we started playing together, and you moved into coaching.
Yep.
You played to a high level as well. And then you transitioned into this pretty quickly. So what was the whole rationale behind that?
Well, once I finished playing, I was coaching, and I just, as a coach, you can only get so much out of a game. I mean, you can only be involved so much. I mean, once you've done the trainings and once you put the guys on the pitch, there's nothing you can do. You've got to sit back there and just hope they, implement your game plan or whatever. And for me, it was good, but it just wasn't quite the same. I wasn't getting out of it I wasn't getting the competitive juices flowing, or I wasn't getting the satisfaction or the total satisfaction that I did from playing rugby.
What was missing?
I think it's just a lot of the stuff was out of my control. Like once I coach a team, once I put them on the pitch, it was up to them. If they didn't feel like playing that well, or if they just decided they want to take on their own plan, it was out of my hands, and all I could do was sit there and either watch a team win or watch a team lose. So, and for me, that was like, not that I'm a control freak, but just something to where, like, whenever I played rugby, I always thought that I could, even if you're losing, you can always have input to try and get your team to win, right? But when you're a coach, you can give them game plans, you can send messages out. But if those guys don't implement that, then you probably won't win. So, but with ultra running, at least I'm in control mostly of what I can achieve. So I mean, as I said before, I'm not in this to win it. I'm not in to win these races because I'm not there. I'm not that athlete, but I can finish them. And finishing is basically, there's only one person that's going to be able to stop me or help me get to the finish line, right? And that's myself. So, I think that this running has given me that. It's just given me, it's more of a high of actually competing, pushing myself, and trying to get the best out of myself as like an athlete or a person. It's not just physical, it's mental. So it's actually, there's you're covering a lot of bases. And for me, it's just, I like taking myself to dark places and then getting yourself out of it. And then, I mean, you can go through a race and you feel like absolute shit. You just don't want to carry on, but you just say, right, the next checkpoint's 5Ks away. When you get there, you're going to have a can of Coke. You'll have, there'll be a chocolate waiting for you. And even though mentally, I'm talking to myself, that, but it's something that keeps you going, and you're like, okay, move to the next checkpoint. So yeah, the whole thing of being in control of what I can achieve is sort of what is why the competitive juices still flow, because of that.
Yeah, and I think the importance of taking yourself out your comfort zone as well. Like,
there's
so many parallels to life, and I think when you're taking it, the reason that is ringing true in my head right now, because I literally just watched Chris Hemsworth's Limitless, where he's basically putting himself through a bunch of tests right now, all exposing him to uncomfortable things, and really all about it is like exposure to stress and how that can help you navigate through life. But there's just, I think a lot of people who played high level sports or sports the majority of life, like they feel that need to satisfy that part of them. Yeah,
no, definitely. I mean, I sort of, when I stopped playing, I didn't really find anything I could get into. Like, I mean, I started playing and played a few rounds of golf, but that wasn't really getting me, I was playing some tennis, and I was like, what, I need to do something. And then I just thought, I knew some guys who had done these running events.
Yeah, quite a lot, because, sorry to interrupt you, but rugby and 100-kilometer, 100-mile runs are like probably the two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys and girls transition out of rugby towards it.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I think that's just it's more of an attitude, and it's a mentality thing. I mean, usually if you've played rugby or any sport at a sort of a certain level, you're used to putting yourself out of your comfort zone, and you're used to nothing's going to come easy. So I think it's just that thing is sort of the mentality. You can do it, and then if you've got a fairly good training ethics, like you don't mind going out and training, you don't need someone to push you to go and train. They're the people who transition well. in all sports teams, you have those people who don't like training. They turn up training, they just go through the motions. They're not really that trained. I mean, I probably was to a certain extent some of that, but I did as much as I needed to, where now I know I need to do a lot more. And it's just been able to, it's made me realise that I was a bit lazy back in the day when I was playing rugby. I could have probably trained a little bit harder. Because now no one's pushing me to train. It's just myself. But I know if I don't train, I'm going to go out up in these mountains up here, and I'm not going to come out of them, if so to speak. So, I think it's just the mentality of people at a certain level of sports can actually go out and do it. I mean, it may be a pain aspect as well. So, I mean, if you play rugby, you're used to pain. I don't think I've played any game in my life where there wasn't any sort of pain. So, going up in the mountains and having a few muscles, or your back aching or whatever, it's sort of you can relate to that. You know how to sort of, there's little receptors you turn on and turn off, and you can forget about that. So it's definitely a mental thing. It's not. I don't think it's a fitness thing. It's definitely. I mean, they say the ultra runners are like 90% mental and 10% fitness. Yeah. So, and I think that's probably why. It's just because the mentality of people can transition through it, even though they're not built for it or not sort of. They don't really look at it on a piece of paper and you think, rugby player to ultra marathon runner, no chance. I think so.
When you first started getting into your running, did you know that you were going to be doing races, or was it running as a means of like keeping fit and healthy? And
so I think basically to get myself to start running, I knew I didn't like running when I was playing rugby. I didn't like doing 2-minute, like 3K runs are probably my max. So to make sure I was going to get into something and do it properly, I signed up for a race first. So I signed up for a race in China through the Taklamakan Desert, 100K race. Yeah. I remember this the day vividly. I basically went online. I was like, right, I want to sign up to a race. I rang Alexandrovich and I was like, hey mate, do you want to do this 100K race? And he's like, oh geez. And then I talked to Hilly. I was like, mate, do you want to do this race? They obviously thought you're a bloody idiot, but they said, oh, we'll have a look. So we'll go for a training run. So I went for one run with Hilly. His orthotics rubbed his feet and he had blisters after 7K, so he was out.
Which normally happens after 100 meters, to be fair.
Yeah. And then Zeno and I went for like a 25K run. He's sort of, after the end of that, he was like, yeah, you know what, I don't think I'm cut out for this. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just do the race of my own, no problem. And I just did it. And then I actually spoke to another guy, Andy Gardner, who was living in Hong Kong at the time. Really good guy. He's got a very good engine. I mean, he could go and run 100Ks, after 25 beers basically. But so he said, yeah, I'll come do it with you. So yeah, I actually did. I signed up for a race first. There's no way at that stage, I wouldn't have been able to do running just for the hell of it, just to go out for a run and enjoy it. I needed to get myself into it. I needed the goal. So my goal was to do this 100K race and finish it. And then after that, it just took over.
Meant to be.
Yeah.
Can I ask, I think it's important we talk about what my role is in our relationship as coach and athlete.
Yeah.
And I really look after the strength side of things, nutrition, and I guess the mindset, nutrition, recovery, lifestyle recovery stuff. But in terms of running, you actually kind of program that for yourself, and I kind of just oversee it and link your program towards whatever phase of running you're in at the time. Can I ask, can you think back to why you decided to look for a strength coach?
Well, I remember actually having the discussion with you. I'd been running for about probably a year and a half, and I'd done the 100K race, and I'd done a few other sort of. Actually, I might have done 2 races, and then I didn't have a very good finishing rate. Like I finished the first one, then I went through the Hong Kong 100, and I failed, and then I pulled out like 50 or 60 Ks, and I tried to do it again, and it was the same thing. And I was just, at that stage, I was like running and running and running. I thought the more I ran, the fitter I'd get and I'd be able to do these races. But the problem was I neglected my strength. So I was just, any muscle I had from rugby was basically getting wasted away by all the running. And I wasn't doing any strength conditioning to supplement it. So then that's when I had a discussion with you, because I remember, I think Hilly had started coaching. Was training under you for a while. And he went from a melted candle to like this ripped, this ripped dude in like, I don't know, 6 months or so, but he put in work, and I was like, you know what, I probably should do something like that. I mean, not that I was worried about the aesthetics, I just needed something to strengthen me, because I was getting injured a lot. I was, calves were going, hammies were going, so I just needed to supplement my running training with something. And I remember having a discussion with you, and you said, well, let's see how we go. So then we started then. So then from then it's been, it's definitely helped. I mean, the last few years I've had some injuries, which were from other sports, but my running hasn't really caused me as many injuries as it used to. That's for sure.
So I think there's an important part. Strength training plays an important part in almost any sport, but in run training especially. And we were actually just sat at breakfast this morning with another a girl who just gotten into distance running, and she's kind of two and a bit years into it, doesn't do any strength training. And I guess the conversation kind of went on to the fact where she was asking, why do I need to strength train? So like what benefits have you found? What have you noticed since incorporating strength training into your
I've found structurally I feel better, if that makes sense. I mean, when I first started running, I'd be running up hills and running down hills. I don't know, I think I just basically running on natural ability, or just been running for so long. I just didn't feel like, I sort of felt loose in a weird way. Like I just didn't feel structurally sound. So now that I've done a lot more strength training, I find that I'm, my gait is more, more even. I think going up hills, I can just, I've got an even pace going up hills now. It used to be just go hard and then you'd die off, but now I've just got like a nice even pace, and I just feel strength through my lower half, and then just through the core and the upper body. I mean, I've got upper body strength because you're carrying a backpack all the time, so I don't feel like I ache as much during a race because you've got this back, you've got a backpack, you're using sticks or poles at some stage, so you are using quite a lot of upper body strength as well. So I think it just basically it's sort of, I guess, I don't know how to say it, but it's probably just tightened me up, made me more complete from head to toe rather than separate body parts moving, and as you said, today we're talking about, going over terrain, you're using different parts of your body to, you're jumping over roots, or you're going up and down stairs, or, and you're running downhill, you've got little rocks and stuff. So, all your little receptor muscles there, everything works. And if you're not strengthening those or training those, then it just, you find yourself getting injured. And that's definitely for me. I feel more confident is probably the best thing. I feel more confident and in my strength and ability when I'm running now. Like I don't have to worry about, maybe I should dodge this rock because I don't know if my ankles can handle it, sort of thing. So now I can just run because I know that there's a foundation there.
And I think the injury part as well, in the early part of your running career where you get a lot of injuries, like we've had a really good year this year.
Definitely.
Like you've had minimal injuries. Yep. I know maybe some of that's the fact that you've been living in a pretty flat place. You haven't had as much terrain and elevation to be doing as much as normal, but still I think generally speaking, like the injury side of things has just, I think, been on a continual decline probably the last 6 to 7 years since we started working together.
No, definitely.
And I think just to like dose some geeky coaching stuff is like what we do in terms, because it's very much a collaboration, which is what I love about our relationship as coach and athlete. It's, periodically we sit down and we map out, right, well, what do we have coming up? And usually that's, all right, Ed, I've just signed up to a race here. Like, can we peak for this? I'm going to do X, Y, and Z before that, but we don't need to prioritize that. So then together we could basically map out, sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's 6 months. I think Chiang Mai was kind of like even longer. It was like more like 6 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was probably 6. Yeah.
And what it normally looks like is you will send through, what you're thinking about doing in terms of a rough structure, in terms of running volume, and the strength side of things is just supporting that. So basically the further away we are from competition, the concept's the same no matter what the sport is, but the further away from the sport, from the competition, the less the training needs to look like the sport. So for us in strength and conditioning terms, like we're training kind of everything. We're especially training the muscles that don't typically get used when you start running, but we're also training the muscles that do get used in running. So in the hope that that's going to have carryover when we do start running. We're also like thinking about probably a little bit less intensity, like allowing your body to recover from the last bit of the season, and maybe like training and running is not so important right now. So kind of goes into maintenance mode. And then there's going to be times a year where you're doing more running, and when the running volume starts to increase, the strength training starts to reduce, and maybe we go into maintenance, or just like we expect in the next 2 months, we're probably going to lose a bit of strength, but that's okay because we need to prioritize running here. And then, as we start to get closer towards race day, the training volume starts to change a little bit. So, we're starting to now do a lot less of the muscles and the movements that we're going to see in running, because if we start to overload those muscles and movements, it means that when you actually do your run, which is the most important thing right now, you've got nothing left.
Yep.
And so we need to basically save your resources as much as possible. So when you run, you've got as much as you can give to your runs. And then, as we start getting closer and closer to competition, the strength and conditioning starts to become less and less and less. So like our kind of last 5 to 6 weeks, we've been doing kind of like 2 sets of each exercise, very little lower body, kind of just like maintaining range of motion work.
Yep.
We push the upper body a little bit more because we know that's not doing as much. And your running volume is just increasing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think that the way we actually collaborated was good. I mean, I basically send you my spreadsheet of the running, and we work out the peaks and troughs of my running, because I don't want to just keep it a flat line the whole time, obviously. So, I think that's been important. I mean, because at least sometimes I'm like, I feel like I want to run, but you're like, no, let's just wait. You've still got 6 months or 5 months. Let's get your strength up, and then obviously we chat about it. You explain it, and I realize, okay, that makes sense, and then we.
Yeah, now you're saying that, I'm having a few flashbacks of some of our conversations, but what are some of those like self-doubts, or not even self-doubts, but I guess the kind of like the booby traps that you fall into, which is normally to do with like doing too much?
No, definitely. I mean, I remember we had a discussion, it would have been 4 months ago, and probably the worst thing was I was watching the UTMB race.
That's right.
And I was going, mate, I ran this morning. I felt really heavy. I didn't feel good, and I stepped on the scales and I was 82 kilograms, and I ran and I felt terrible, and I really want to up my running now. And you said, well, hold on a second. Let's work out why you're having these thoughts. And obviously, I tried to deny it for a while. So no, it's not because I've watched UTMB and I've seen all these guys, 65 kilograms sprinting up mountains, and I'm struggling to run up the smallest hill in Macau, and I was just frustrated. Plus it was hot. And then we sort of broke it down and thought, okay, look, mate, you've got 4 months to a race. If you start putting in all your effort now with running, by the time you get to the race, you're going to be overrunning. So you said, let's just hold back, like a sort of a coil, like a spring, right? Let's just hold you back for a while, and then we'll let you go. That was probably one of the smartest things we did. We actually had that discussion and worked out. Mentally, I had to sort of work out why I was in this space and why I was thinking these negative thoughts. And then I think it was actually when I was running one day, I ran and I messaged you and I was telling you these things, and then I literally sat down halfway through my run and I had to think about it, and I messaged you back straight away. I remember sitting on this concrete step in Macau, half up this hill, and I was like, mate, I've just realised that I'm overthinking this. Like, I'm just being a bit silly. I've just realised that it's 33 degrees here. It's like 90% humidity. I'm trying to run up a hill, and I'm asking myself why I'm tired and why I don't feel fit. Well, there's those outside factors there that I didn't take into consideration, and I thought, this should be the same as running when it's winter. I should be still getting up this hill fast, and I shouldn't be sucking the big breaths in. And why do I feel heavy? And that was just sort of like a shining moment that I sat down and said, look, like, stop being an idiot. Like, just think about things, and you'll be, if you think about things, methodically, and work out why you're going through these thought processes, and then change it into what you're doing in your training, and then you look at the outside factors, you realize that, actually I'm on the right track. I've been out running. I've had a long week of running 60 or 70 odd Ks. I'm now running up a hill in Macau. It's humid, it's hot. It's early morning. I didn't sleep very well. There's so many factors that I actually, when I sat down and thought about it, I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah. I wasn't trying to make excuses for the fact that I was feeling this way, but it was just, it actually, when I actually thought about it, that made sense. So
it's funny though, when emotions are high, it's very hard to think rationally though, isn't it? Like,
no,
in that moment, it's very hard.
I was actually so annoyed because I was running, and I remember like I was running, and I was like, hey mate, and I started running, I felt okay, and then I had a little bit of my foot started to get a bit sore, and that sort of was just the catalyst to set the wheels in motion, like downhill fast. Like, it's all the negative thoughts kept coming to my head, like, oh, you're running slow, I feel heavy, and it's just, I don't feel good, and I'm breathing heavy, and I'm, it's just, it just was just.
Plus, you've got the comparison image in your head of just watching those guys flying through the mountains.
Exactly, and that was after I'd watched that the night before. So, and the reason, and that's funny because I was watching the UTMB and it was late at night, so I was like watching the UTMB till about 2 a.m. Then I got up at 6 to go for a run, and so I had like 4 hours sleep, which is another factor why I was feeling like crap. So, it was actually good that I could actually just stop midway through and sit down on a rock and think about it, and then I was like, yes.
Pull yourself out of it.
And that was, for me, that was like a probably defining moment of this whole training block was the fact that sometimes you're a little bit too hard on yourself, and you just got to, peel the layers back and work out why you are where you are, or why things don't feel right. And most times, if you're putting in the hard yards in the training, most times there is a reason why. And not every day you feel 100%. And that's what you got to realize. Like, if you're running 100 Ks a week, you're not going to feel 100% every day. Actually, you're probably never going to feel 100%. You're probably going to range from 60 to 80, and it's just going to fluctuate. So
I think something else I remember from that conversation was, I remember also saying to you all the amazing things that you had done, and all the positive things that we had seen from your training. The fact that we'd strung together like 5 months without an injury.
Yep, true.
You're niggling. I remember you had like a niggly knee pain that wouldn't go away pretty much the whole of last season.
Yeah,
we hadn't dealt with that at all. Your calves were good. Like, you were sleeping well. You were maintaining weight. Your energy was good. Like, there were loads of things that I think when we highlighted it, brought it back into perspective to be like, because it is hard, isn't it? Because you can always do more. Like, we can always do more.
Yeah.
But it's whether knowing that more is actually going to be better.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things. And sometimes you do actually have to do it. Sometimes you have to make a couple mistakes, do a bit too much, and realize that was too much. Sometimes you got to undercook it.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about today, in the taxi, was like, you're never going to be perfectly prepared.
No.
You will never know if it was a perfect preparation.
No, and it's like, even for me, like, now there's certain things we're saying, like, even because living in Macau, there's not much elevation. So yes, I'm worried the fact that I haven't done the elevation, that could be, a factor in me maybe perhaps not finishing, because I haven't done the elevation. But I just know that all of the supplemental training I've done in the gym work, I've got stronger in my legs, and my lower body's stronger, and I feel better. So I'm not really, like, the whole race I'm not really worried about. I'm not really worried about, obviously I don't think not finishing is a failure, for one. Not finishing is just not finishing, because to me, if I've actually got the balls to put my name on a starting list to run 100 Ks with 10,000 meters elevation gain through the hills in Thailand, I think if I start, then
100 miles.
Yes, 100 miles. Sorry. If I'm going to sign up for that and I put my name down, I'm at the starting line, towing the starting line with all these guys, and I start running, then that's one win, right? But you can't fail that. Like, that, it's not finishing doesn't mean you're failing. Not finishing is just something didn't go right in the day. I mean, especially if you put in the work. And I know I put in the work, so yeah, I'm all going.
What will be, will be.
We'll see.
We were talking today about, I was asking you, what your mindset, what your headspace has been like in this last week, and what it was like today.
Yep.
And, if there was like, I don't know, any negative self-talk coming in, fears about not finishing, the ego, comparison to others. And we had a good conversation about that. And I think you've grown a lot since, the more and more you've done this. And of course, like, competing in sport for pretty much your whole life, like, you're always evolving and growing this. But I just feel like this is an area, like the mental piece of sports is only really being talked about more now.
Yeah.
We didn't really have tools, or people weren't trying to help you understand when you had negative self-talk or you had performance anxiety. But it sounds like, well, I know for a fact that your ability to let go of a lot of that stuff has evolved a lot over the years.
No, I mean, definitely. As I think the start of our conversation was, the taxi was talking about ego and how easily I was humbled early on in my ultra marathon journey by the first race I went in, and I looked at the guys around me, and I was like, oh, look at this guy, like, I got this guy covered, and this is the start line. We've got like 20 hours to go. You're basically trying to judge yourself or judge someone else, and it's just like stupid. So yeah, off I went. I ran. I went out, like a bull at a gate. Saw this guy behind me. I was like, yeah, see you, buddy. See you at the finish. And after 30 Ks, this guy's like running past, hey, good morning. And I'm just like, and I was blowing out my ass and I was struggling. And yeah, so I mean, to me, in this sport, in any sport, you can't really judge a book by its cover, right? But I mean, and yeah, just the fact that I was really brought back to earth quickly, like really quickly, to think I don't want to stand on a start line and judge anyone, because that person's got just as much right to be there as I have. They've probably done the training. They've qualified to be in these races.
And you don't know.
You don't know. I have no idea. I know the only people I know in this race are the guys who are the elites. And to be honest, I'll probably see their ass for like 30 seconds, and then I won't see them till they're on the news for winning the race. Like, I won't even see them to the finish line. They'll be in bed probably half pissed at a bar, and I'll be still running around the track waiting for you to get to an A station. But no, I mean, yeah, it's just. It's funny that made me think. Then whenever I got to a start line now, I'm just like, you know what? I've just got to run my own race now. I know what my times are. I know where I want to be. I know what pace I need to go out. That's it. Just stick to my own race. And ego's out the window fast. Like, you can't have an ego in this sport. I mean, you get humbled by the hills, and you get brought back to earth quickly by these mountains. Others, rip you a new one if you take it too lightly. So, I think in that I've learned fast. Like, just there's no space for arrogance and egotistical idiots on actually anywhere, but in this race, it's just. And now all I do is I just think about my own race. I just go to the start line. I don't actually try. I don't actually get not nervous. I don't, because I mean, there's obviously that sort of, you're at the start line and you're thinking, geez, I've got 36 hours ahead of me. That obviously that goes through your mind, but there's no negative really thoughts. It's like, oh, I've got to do this now, and then even on that finishing thing, our group of mates in the early days, they're like, oh, so you're going to go this race? Oh yeah, see you in a few hours. Then obviously expecting a DNF. But now I to be honest, if I finish, I finish. If I don't care. And if they say to me, oh, you got beaten by this person, I'm like, look, it's fine. Like, I'm fine with it, because there's not many people I know in our group that run these races, and I think,
or has an appreciation for what actually goes
so
into
to be honest, I'm not really, as long as I run the race and I'm happy with how I did, that's good enough for me, right? So
okay, I think you kind of alluded to this, but how do you define if this race has been a success or not?
Well, I guess finishing would obviously be the first point. I mean, as I've said before, we've been at 30 to 40 hours time, but finishing is the ultimate goal. Finish first, then you have your other little goals throughout. So obviously finishing first, then in the time that I thought is another sort of
Extra
goal, bonus.
bonus.
Like as an extra bonus, and then there's other things that are out of my control, which if I can get into the top 10 of my age group, then I will get I'll get a automatic spot in the UTMB in Chamonix. So that's another bonus if that happens, but that's out of my control, so I don't even think about that. That's just, I just got to run my race and see what happens. I mean, but I mean, look,
I think the fact that you're here, as you said already, is already a massive win.
No, I mean, as I said before, like, if someone's got the sort of the balls or the guts to just sign up for this to start, that's, I mean, it's daunting, the fact that you're going to go and run for 36 hours. I mean, 90% of the people I talk to, they're like, you what?
I'm quite nervous to be driving for 36 hours, and it's not even driving for 36 hours. I'm literally driving for like 6 hours.
I'm just nervous how many speeding tickets I'm going to get in the mail next week.
I don't reckon they have speed cameras here in Thailand. I think we'll be all right.
No, I mean, it's to be honest, I've done so many of them now. I try not to let it get to me early on. Like, it's just, no, obviously tomorrow morning will be different. I'll be at the start line, and there'll be some nerves, and nerves are good. I mean, it's about nerves and the fear of, I think there is a bit of a fear of not failure, because as I said, failure is not, there's no such thing. I don't believe in ultra running for me. But it's just a fear of, if I don't, is not finishing. I would really want to finish, because it's the competitive nature. But that just means I care. Like, if the fear of not finishing, it just means that I care enough, that I've trained enough to be where I am, and fear is just a show of how much I care for the sport, and how much I want to succeed, or achieve my goals.
Nice. Well, Jiki, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, mate.
We're going to be catching up again. Hopefully, if all goes well and you are still in one piece and you have the energy for another podcast, we're going to have a post-race reflection. But best of luck tomorrow. Looking forward to being there for you, bro. Thanks,
buddy. And I look forward to the huge, the amazing amount of banter that's going to come out of my mouth after 36 hours of running.
Yeah. All right, bud. Until next time.
Cheers, buddy.